in terms of society and how people described it, looked at it, perceived it, do you feel like it was looked at as a partnership victory?
Short of drowning, you had to swim, right? So how are you going to swim? So we found out the hard way who our friends were, for sure. I mean, they just like started dropping off in every direction.
We're too myopic in the way that we applaud and acknowledge and all of that. I think it's financial success, career success, while value could be equally being created by raising beautiful kids.
We didn't keep going back to it and saying, okay, so this is not working, just let it slide. No. Instead, I think we just came back and said, no, I think we need to put in even more effort.
We tend to take certain relationships for granted as well, and I think at times it becomes important to start really tuning into people who are closest to us and their needs and what they care for. Mothers do that. You give your time, energy, effort, and then when it's time to kind of receive, it happens. I think everybody else gets busy in their own lives. Is anything that you'd like to have changed in your granddaughter's generation for women? Hi everyone, welcome to Yellow Door Talks. I'm Sona Mahajan, a mindfulness teacher and life coach, and today I'm in conversation with Mona Parekh. Mona grew up and studied in Calcutta before moving to Mumbai for work, and she moved to the US at the early age of 21 for further studies and began her personal and professional life in the US. She is a trained interior designer with experience in the retail sector, and she's been actively involved with the non-profit Gramshree in Ahmedabad. And Jayesh Parekh has the privilege of calling Mona his wife. Join me in conversation with Mona. Mona, welcome to Yellow Door Talks. It's an absolute pleasure to have you. I'm really excited about this conversation today. Jayesh and I have, in parallel, we're going through a series of conversations and it's been very meaningful. But to be able to have this chance to speak with you, your independent journey and your journey in partnership with Jayesh is very, very special. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This is probably my very first time ever.
Yeah.
I've never even done this for any of my Young Living meetings or anything at all, and I'm holding on to my oil. I need the courage.
No, thank you so much. Really, I think this conversation means a lot to me because the way I see it, and this is something I've spoken to Jayesh about as well, is that the success that we see with him, for me, at least 50% of it is you. And I feel, as a society, we tend to miss that underrated value that a partner plays, in making that success that we see on the front happen. It goes acknowledged, unacknowledged at times, and I think for me, I really was looking forward to speaking with you about, how did you see that happen? What did you kind of have to work through to see that combined success manifest or come through? So look forward to hearing from you on that.
Sure. Well, I would say that I learned this, from my parents, where I've always seen my mom be there for my dad because his business was always at home. And so growing up, that's what we have always seen, that mom's there handling us, handling the home, at the same time helping him out with the business. Because it was a sole proprietor, so it was just him. He didn't have brothers and family or parents or anybody that was in the business with him, so it was just mom and him. So when we came to this junction where we had to decide for ourselves, do we want to go into start something on our own, or do we still want to continue working for IBM? And so that was a decision that we made, that we're don't want to go on that path. We want to do something on our own, but it came with a lot of changes in my life, for sure. Where where that 4.5 years of expat life suddenly turned completely the other direction, and you had to literally cut off in every aspect. The first thing we did was we took the children out of the international school, put them into the local school system. We had to cut expense at every level. I mean, my children and I didn't go on any vacation for 4 years. Stress built up to absolute unforeseen levels. There would be, fights, of course, because, he is stressed because he's got to make ends meet to provide for the family. While on the other hand, I'm like, okay, I've got to deal with the kids, I've got to deal with other issues, and also make sure that, I'm helping him out. I started working with him in the business that we started. And so it's like you get pulled in a lot of different directions.
Right.
And so yes, there's a lot of giving, and it takes its toll on your health as well.
And it's a lot, just perhaps taking a step back, you mentioned this is perhaps something that you have seen modeled as you were growing up.
Yes.
And that stayed with you. Tell me a little bit about, what was it like before marriage? How did things change? And even in terms of, because you've had a profession of your own, you went to the US to study. How did all of that, how did you kind of make sense of that new life post-marriage? And then, of course, we'll get into some of what you've just mentioned,
Well, before marriage, I was working for an interior design firm. Then I went to the US, started studying at Brooks College again, continuing with my interior design, studies.
Right.
And then worked at an interior design firm in Austin. And then marriage happened. We moved from Austin to Houston, and then, almost, I think it's 8-9 years later, we moved to Singapore. So all that time I was working before we moved to Singapore. Now you come to Singapore, obviously you don't have the permit to work.
Right.
So then you just become a homemaker, which wasn't bad. I mean, let me assure you, I had a wonderful time because I got the opportunity to, volunteer at the school, at the children's school, see my son grow, which, was a wonderful time. Freya was 4 when we moved to Singapore, so, watched her through kindergarten and, first grade and so on. But then, yes, things changed. So that was a good life, sure.
So, and I hear, whether it was the move from the US to Singapore, and at that time, people didn't know where Singapore was, and it was a very new kind of place to kind of, come and live in and build a life in. How do you see yourself together, having taken the risks that you did? Do you feel you already had that risk-taking capability, or you kind of just put yourself in it and you went with it?
Well, I think the biggest risk I took was going to the United States in the first place.
Yes.
I mean, I actually turned 21, I think a day or two after I landed in the United States. And that was like unheard of, unforeseen. It was just like, wasn't a done thing in our community or anybody that I knew who just like pick our bags and say, okay, I'm going. And, it was my mom who was very liberal and said, sure, go. And at the back of her mind, she said, okay, this kid is going to come back, so just let her go, she'll be back. My dad had no idea that I was going, and I was like going for good and never coming back. So yes, there were situations where, the culture shock that I got when I came to the US and the people, and it was like, whoa, I don't think I can survive here. This is not me. But then at the back of my head was, no, Mona, you left it. You left India. You were the one who wanted to come here. Now you're just going to have to, just bite the pill and just make a go of it, whatever it takes. And so that is when I used to call Jay and I said, Fama, what am I supposed to do? Because he was in Austin, I was in California. And he says, well, you decided to do it, your choice. So I said, okay, fine. Swallow it and go for it. So I did. And then that's where I am. So I think that was my biggest risk that I took. Because the second risk was marrying him, of course. I mean, space.
So that seems like this is perhaps something that you were comfortable with in a way, having done it previously. Was it scary for you in any manner?
It was. It was horribly scary because Singapore is not a cheap place. And with no income coming in and all the expenses that you foresee, sure, we found out the hard way who our friends were, for sure. I mean, they just like started dropping off in every direction. But yeah, we were there. I mean, I guess, you know, when you say that we just have to make it work, because short of drowning, you had to swim, right? So how are you going to swim?
So this was
whatever it takes.
Right. Tell me a little bit more about, you know, what it was. How many years was this? So both of you were not working. This is the time when Jayesh had made his switch to exploring the entrepreneurial journey. Tell me a little bit more about what the circumstances were, and then, you know, kind of how did you guys make your way through that? And I can already hear that it was a difficult journey. Yeah.
I wouldn't wish this on anybody. I mean, not even on my worst enemy. I mean, I'd say that make sure you have a pot of gold tucked away somewhere, or you have your parents or your uncle or whoever it is to support you through this, or one spouse should have a job, because with no income it is really, really tough. But it was, I want to say, good 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. And then of course, like, short of like going out to look for a job, I thought, why not help him in the business that he's starting? Because then it's like, you know, you're there, you know, you're not having to go somewhere else and help somebody else. You know, you're helping your own you know, company.
Correct.
And so that's how I got involved with Frontier Technologies.
Right.
And that's when I learned how to use a computer. Didn't have a clue.
Wow. So you were, you know, contributing in that sense to the company, and this was also the time when the kids were, how old were the kids?
Daughter was 8.5.
Okay.
My son was, I think, just about turning short of 4, I guess.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah. And this is tough, right? I think for a lot of people getting on this path, you know, with the families, it's teamwork, and it's that partnership that needs to come together to make it work. There's no other way. How did you do it? If you could just share a little bit about, you know, how did you overcome some of the challenges? If you could talk about even the challenges with the kids, what did it look like?
Well, for my daughter, when we moved her from the international school to the local school, the conversation that we had with her was, you don't have an option. You're just going to have to make a go of it. You know, it might take a while to make friends, but there is no option. Like, you can't come a week later and say that, okay, I want to go back to the American school. And no, that option doesn't exist. And she was wonderful. I mean, she managed whatever it took, you know, she did it. And she needed to do a, you know, second language, and so we had to enroll her in the Gujarati school. So that was the tough part, where, you know, learning Gujarati from the 3rd grade, where you should have been learning it from kindergarten. So there was that extra help that I gave her, you know, learning the alphabets and, you know, getting to it, which actually helped her also, because when she eventually moved to India and knowing the Gujarati language, the alphabets, you know, I just taught her the Hindi alphabets, and it's pretty much, she just kind of like built on that. So that actually worked as a great boon for her. But for my son, on the other hand, trying to get him to learn a second language was a huge thing. He was all the time for fun and games, just wanted to play. So he even attended Gujarati school just so that he could have the break time to play with the kids. Of course, the hard part was, you know, finding out his learning, you know, shortcomings, and, you know, how we had to overcome that. So that was another journey on its own. Stress level at that time is super high, at least for me it was. And of course I ended up getting ulcers and what have you, so that was another thing. But I guess we just got on with it. That's all.
What was your day like? Because it seems that you were juggling quite a bit with work, supporting, you know, as you could, and then managing everything with the home and kids.
So once the kids went to school was when I went into the office, and then I would leave by about 4 in time when the kids had to be picked up from the bus stop or wherever it was. And then it was just with the children, and then at night It was like if he needed anything else to be done or any errands to be run or whatever, then we kind of sort of fitted that in. But yeah, it was definitely a juggle, but you knew that you had to do it. There was no choice. I mean, it wasn't like what I told my daughter. It was the same way with us. I mean, there was no choice. We had to make it work.
And what kind of coping mechanisms does one bring forth? Because again, you just, like you said, you just have to make it happen, and then the stress levels are high, you see it manifesting in the body. Was there anything that you felt you tapped into that helped, see you through those 6-7 years? Is not less.
Well, I've seen my mom do it. We have done it twice before, where literally when they say US is your place for realizing your dreams, yes, definitely living in the US is easier, because with your one paycheck you can still manage to get a roof over your head. You can still manage to get a little bit here and there, and so we've been through that before. So here it was again going back to that, where okay, how can you cut down in every direction?
Right.
And you cut down. I mean, you just say, fine, okay, I'm not going on vacation, I'm not going on vacation, and that's it. It's not like, again, you're going to like worry. Yes, you are going to worry, but you're not going to say it's not the end of the world if you don't go on vacation. Okay, now if you don't go out to a dinner and you don't go out to a movie, it's not the end of the world, because you hope that again it'll come around like how it did the first 2 times, that things will come around and it'll be, better life.
Yeah. So that thought process was there, that I want to make this happen against the odds, and that letting go of vacations, letting go of that lifestyle, though not easy, I think was something that at some level you were okay to let go of, to take that shot at things. Mona, you spoke about, there is a price paid for these decisions that you all took, whether it was in terms of lifestyle, kids' lifestyles. How does one know, and this is again from the perspective of those who are on this path, how did you think through how far should one go? Because when you're on that path, you don't know when something may click or may not click at all. So how did you all think about that?
Well, I guess you have, one is the trust that you have in each other.
Yeah.
We had his very dear friend Pradeep, who helped us out initially, by giving us office space and helping us be there for moral support and every which way. His partner at IBM, Balwan, joined him also in this business on the entrepreneurial journey. And so the comfort zone was there, where you knew that these people were there. And at the same time, yes, it is your journey at the end of it, right? But yes, I know that he's okay. The back of my mind, okay, let's put it this way: if things just didn't work out, we could always pack our bags and say, okay, we're going back to the US, and IBM would be happy to take him back. Right? And he's had so many years of experience at IBM, so I was sure that was there at the back. But we didn't keep going back to it and saying, okay, so this is not working, just let it slide. No. Instead, I think we just came back and said, no, I think we need to put in even more effort. And I think a little more effort into it. And I think that's how it just kind of went. And of course, let's face it, we're both very blessed. I mean, from where I have come, I'm not saying that I came from, humble beginnings, but at the same time, my parents have never indulged us in any which way. Never. I still remember where, we had started out with 1 rupee as our pocket money, and then it ended up with 5 rupees as your pocket money. And I'm like, come on, Mom, where is this 5 rupees going to take me? And she said, well, you get everything at home. What do you need? And I'm like, but my friends get to buy things at the tuck shop in the school. I'd like to do that too.
Right.
And she said, no, you got to learn the value of the money. So I guess maybe some part of it still makes me feel that I'm in that poverty mentality zone where I always think that I have to save for a rainy day. If I get $1,000, I am not going to blow it out. No,
Yeah.
I'll be the one who like, okay, put it away.
Yeah.
End of story. We have these constant, fights where he says, why don't you fly business class? And I'm like, no, I don't see any reason why I should.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not getting off the plane and going to a meeting, so I'm okay. And I sleep. I mean, I never slept on the planes early. I was like wide awake throughout. But now I can knock off and just go to sleep, and it's okay. So I'm rested anyway when I come out, and I'm like, what you would have spent that extra 6,000 or 7,000, the difference for business class, I take the money and I spend it. I mean, I want to see something tangible for it. Whether it is, I don't know, piece of jewelry, or my shopping for the whole year, or something for the kids, or whatever it is. But I feel I need to justify where I'm spending that money. I just can't blow it off. I just can't.
Yeah. So that value you feel is coming from the upbringing, and that enabled in a way at a time when perhaps resources were not.
Absolutely helped at that point in time where I said, okay, it's fine. We can handle it.
Yeah. And it's fantastic to see how some of these things come in handy, whether it's grit, the resilience that you need to kind of see through those times. And looking back, there are threads to having either learned it from the parents or the childhood, early stage, like you said, moving to the US. So I'm sure that those threads showed up in those tough moments and enabled you all to take those steps. On the emotional side of things, and I can imagine kind of being at the center with work, supporting Jayesh's journey, professional journey, and with the kids. How does one, and this could be any partner, right? Is there anything that you felt helped? Were there any tools that you used, spiritually, non-spiritually, that worked at that time?
No. It's just having made that decision that you're going to swim whatever it takes.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah. So that thought and that that thought was your grounder, and you just went with that and making that happen. And I think there's in a positive way some level of stubbornness to making it happen. In a positive way, like you said, that when things didn't work out, it wasn't about let's go back. I think there was always this intention of we need to go harder.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Because I'm not let's put it this way, I was not a religious person at that per se.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy bhajans, kirtans, things like that. I do enjoy if someone's having some sort of a katha or a prayer or something. Right. I'm more than happy to attend. It has that grounding effect on me. I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just helps me calm down or helps me feel that yes, there is someone up there.
Yeah.
And so that constant gratitude effect is there.
Yes.
Where literally, I mean, it may sound stupid to some people, but it's like if I enter a car park and I get a parking spot, the first thing I say is thank you God. I don't know why, but it just automatically comes out. So I'm grateful and I'm appreciative, and I just want to send it out there, say that yes, I am grateful. Right. Whatever it may be. It's the first thing is that thank you comes out.
Right.
Like people say that you should go to the temple and ask for something so that God knows what you're asking for. And I'm like, what am I asking for? I guess He knows what I should have, and so all I'm going to say is thank you. I mean, life is good, can't complain.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Absolutely. So it's I think the way you've described it and the way I saw it as well is that the contribution is significant. how have people around, once the combined success, the way I see it, was achieved in terms of society and how people described it, looked at it, perceived it, do you feel like it was looked at as a partnership victory, or were the eyes where the media goes? How do you feel about that?
No, it's always the person who's achieved the success, that's the person that gets all the glory. And the person who's on the side just literally gets left on the side, which I'm fine with. I've never wanted to be in the limelight. Like, I'm one who's like, I never want to have my photograph anywhere. I don't want to be known anywhere. I'm just me, and I'm happy where I am. I'm content. But on the other hand, yes, I do feel that the other partner does get shortchanged, to the extent that somebody needs to acknowledge it sometime, right? Maybe even, I don't know if even the children understand that the role that the mom played in the father's success. Because yes, they're in awe of their dad. I mean, both of them, but I don't think they even realize, what they actually went through.
Correct. Even themselves.
I don't think they even realize that.
And this is, I think, even though it's not coming from an intention that is, on purpose people want to do this, but it's so ingrained in us as a society that the eyes go there, the attention, applause, everything will go in the direction. And again, just in terms of you work towards it as a partnership. There is 50-50 effort, 50-50 blood, sweat, tears that go in, and then we see this all around us, that we tend to miss out this tremendous value that has been created by another human being, by an individual. And and this could be a husband or a wife, depending on the situation. But I think it becomes so important to look at that value that a human being has brought to that success, which I feel has been missed out, and which is why this conversation is meaningful for me. Do you feel this conversation needs to be changed in any manner? What would you tell people out there in terms of just if they could shift their perspective on this?
Well, I would always say that the person who's getting all the glory needs to understand that he or she could not have achieved it single-handedly. It's almost impossible. I've seen a lot of marriages break lately, and it's really saddening because it's like you don't have any control over it, obviously. I mean, you just watch it as a bystander, but you really wish that there was some way that they could have, worked it out. And at that point in time, and when this break does happen, I have seen that in every one of them is the woman that has gotten shortchanged, because she has not been able to show that this is what I'm worth. But again, at that point in time, what can you do? Because what the spouse is worth at that point in time, I guess it just gets split 50-50. But what if it's not split 50-50? That is where I have an issue with. Like, you can't say, okay, I've shifted all my assets to all these different people, and here, look, I go to the lawyers and say, I don't have anything. Now, how is a woman, if she's not smart enough from day one and understanding the husband's business or his investments and things like that, she's clueless. She has no idea what the husband's worth. Then how is she supposed to get that 50%? Right? So obviously the woman needs to take some interest in his investments, needs to know, be more aware, or have maybe a banker friend or whatever, or maybe go to the meetings, and learn for yourself. that, okay, this is it, in reality, this is what it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of just the shift that needs to happen, one is of course the awareness that each of whichever spouse this may be needs to start having towards perhaps the finances and what's happening in general, but just in terms of even how we perceive success, I think the fact that we cannot see this hidden value and appreciate it is because we value wealth, we value fame, we value some of the stuff that is fancy on the outside. And do you feel there could be a shift there, because we're just losing out, learning from perhaps what the journey that you just spoke about, right? How many people are leaning into that to gain from that, while one tends to want to understand how one can make the money and become, say, in this case, Jayesh. Yeah.
See, for women, yes, men are, in our culture growing up, it was always a man that went out to work. The woman was always the homemaker, right? In our times, what could you study? Either you did home science, max you could have done commerce, or otherwise, if you were the really intelligent one, then you went to and did your doctorate, right? You became a doctor. But today, there is so much that is out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is unbelievable how much is out there. So for a woman today, she has to learn to be financially independent, whatever it takes. Yes, all of us are not smart enough where we can, get a degree and, get a corporate job and be a, high flyer and things like that. No, it's not all of us that can be that. But whatever you're good at, somehow learn to monetize it. Say, person that I admire is Sarab Kapoor, the chef that everybody knows today in Singapore. She wasn't where she is today when she started, but the drive in her, she's making it happen every step of the way, and she's not ashamed of asking for help. She's not expecting wonders to happen overnight, but she has trudged along, and cooking was her passion. That's what she was good at, and she has somehow monetized it. So there are people, you're teaching your children, heck, you can give tuitions to the other kids in your child's class. And you're teaching your son or your daughter, you can teach 2 other kids or 3 other kids at the same time. You never know where that takes you. If you are good at art, give art lessons. Or if you're really, really very good at it, you can even start, getting work commissioned, and they'll give you something and you can, create that. So you don't have to have a degree to be holding a corporate job, and that's the only way that you can monetize yourself. You can start somewhere else. And like, I was good at art. I enjoyed that. Now, what did I think of when I moved to Bombay and I couldn't continue with my degree? I'm like, okay, fine. Where can I use my art skills? And then I went into interior design because I enjoyed that. I liked it, and I was great at doing my landscapes and my drawings and things. And so I went for that. And fast forward, when I was in the US, and the economy dived, and so the only thing I got was related to that was in Marshall Fields at the furniture department, where we had antiques, carpets, furniture, the whole works. And I said, okay, this is still along the line that I I'm educated in, and so let's go and explore that. So that's what I worked. Fast forward again, I ended up again into the retail work, where I'm managing departments like lingerie and things. Now, what does that have to do with what I've done? It's just, I guess, some way management skills, which you've learned over time. You do that. When I came to Singapore and I started, okay, who was going to hire me? And I'm like, if I had gone, like how Singapore now, the government, gives you money to go and, improve your skills, what they call it, skills future or whatever. That is a wonderful thing that the Singapore government is doing. So every woman should, try to participate in that. But, okay, so I said, fine, help Jay in the business. And whatever it is that you can do, I can drive a car, fine, I can run errands for you, I can do deliveries, pickups, whatever. I could do GST, I could do payroll, I could, type out letters, there were a lot of different things that you could do. You want to start somewhere, let's start here.
Yeah.
So it's just that women need to get that opportunity and want to do something.
Right. And I think this is also, I think it's circumstantial, it's individual. In this case, it made sense to, kind of work in this arrangement. In other cases, it makes sense perhaps for both partners to have jobs that look very similar, while in some cases there are partners who choose to be a stay-at-home parent. But I think just coming back to not missing different kinds of value and not being too, I think we're too myopic in the way that we applaud and acknowledge and all of that. I think it's financial success, career success, while value could be equally being created by raising beautiful kids. And kids need time and nurturing, and if a parent might choose to do that, I feel like we cannot omit that value creation, and I feel we need to start acknowledging different kinds of value and not just a certain kind. So just wanted to kind of bring that into perspective. Mona, how has it been now that you all have been through this journey together and the success was realized? What's your professional path now? Are you pursuing anything?
Well, I went through this phase of first with interior design, then retail sales, then coming to Singapore, doing frontier technologies, and then I went to this patch where I concentrated a lot on social work with Gramshree in Ahmedabad, which was a wonderful, very satisfying period. And along the way then I was also doing, I started on my wellness journey with Young Living. It started with just healing myself from the respiratory issues that I constantly suffered from, and I realized that it wasn't just me. There are loads and loads and loads of people here in Singapore that suffer from the same thing. It's just that we have it in the air here, and so people just need to understand that, and I'm happy to assist them. It's very satisfying when I help others, and so now that has become a business for me. So it's like I've gone from one sphere to another, and so this is what I do now, literally 24/7. I mean, I get up in the middle of the night to answer questions for people because my members and my team are across the globe, and so it usually happens that when you have an emergency, all rationale just kind of like goes out of your head, and you stumble and you really don't know what you need to do. So at that point in time, I tell people, okay, don't sit and guess, message me. That's what I find keeps me busy all the time. I did realize in between that sometimes that if I got too caught up in that, I was missing out on other things like travel and just going away for a while. And so now I've learned how to manage that.
And do you see, and in a way tables have turned now, perhaps there's more time that the family tends to have, and then now you're busy with what you do. Do you see that playing out differently now? How do you see that happening? Do you have that support?
Well, yes and no. Well, I would definitely like more support. Yes, they are okay with it that, sometimes, earlier, my kids used to say that they would call me the voodoo witch. They would tell their friends, don't say anything is wrong with you in front of my mom, otherwise she will come back with an oil and say, here, use this or drink this. So they themselves have joined me in the journey. It took me a lot of convincing, but they have now understood the good of the Young Living products. But having said that, when I ask them for help in my business, they're like, go figure it out yourself, do this. And I'm like, I'm not good with tech. But if you could help me, no. So I learned Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that on my own. PowerPoint, I'm still struggling. Now I'm struggling with Canva because I was told that that's the way to go, with making slides and things like that. I guess I'll figure it out one of these days. But yes, it would really be nice if they reached out and helped. I guess Jay always thinks, but you only earn peanuts, so why do you stress over it? And I'm like, whatever it is satisfying. You're helping people, and that is what I'm looking at. It doesn't have to be a high-paying job or a business or whatever. It's never going to be have returns like what he has, but it's a satisfaction that I'm enjoying and I like and I care for. So whether you want to call it, I look at it that okay, if he helped, I would say okay, we would be working towards couple goals as well, right? It doesn't just necessarily mean that okay, you're helping helping me with my business, but we're doing this together, and that would be nice.
Absolutely. And no, thank you for putting this out. Takes me back to what I should be doing and how I could have perhaps leaned in with my parents, with my mother. And we tend to take certain relationships for granted as well, and I think at times it becomes important to start really tuning into people who are closest to us and their needs and what they care for, like you said. And you gave your time, and I guess mothers do that. You give your time, energy, effort, and then when it's time to kind of receive, it happens. I think everybody else gets busy in their own lives, and we really need to come back to tune into this a lot more. So thank you for putting it out.
If you think about it, when my parents were older, of course both have passed on now, but what do your parents at that age want? Right? Just spend some time with them. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to indulge them with gifts and things like that. That's not what they're looking for, because they have now reached a level where they've got everything that they want, and they can get what they want on their own. They don't need you to buy it for them. They just want your time. That's it. Companionship. That's it. So it doesn't hurt.
Thank you so much, Mona. That beautifully sums up. But to wrap up, Mona, if you could share with me if there's anything that you'd like to have changed in your granddaughter's generation for women.
I would say, yes, education is important, but definitely find what are you good at? Find that and explore that at an early age. Don't wait till you're 40, 50, you've got this corporate job, and then you say, oh my gosh, I'm still like how Jay is exploring his singing now, right? So there are others who want to, I don't know, maybe paint, draw, learn to skate, learn to swim. There are a lot of different things. Learn to dance. There's so much out there that people would have liked to do at an early age but didn't do it. Play sports. People are learning golf at a much later age these days. And then there are others who are blessed where they've had the opportunity to do it at a much younger age. So go ahead and do that. But yes, definitely find what you enjoy. You have to be financially independent. Whatever it takes, you have to carve out some form of work that you can do, because the new generation today is not the kind where what we were at, where your marriage was there for keeps and that was it. Whatever it took to make it work, you made it work.
Yeah.
But in the new generation, it's like, okay, I don't need to put up with your crap, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, what do you do then?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So they need to learn that.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, your time, and your life. Thank you, Mona.
Most welcome. Take care.